Guys, and welcome back to the Summit 7 American Qualifiers. We got Infamous going up against Digital Chaos, last best of 3 of the day. Let's hope it's going to be a good one because DC just had a little bit of a shuffle, but we'll get to that in a little bit, I'm sure. I'm Mike Loris, going to be joined by MRP Dota. Dude, what is going on with these Infamous people's names? It's pretty sick.
Well, you know.
YYF and Baboka Jr., that's not bad.
Is that actually YYF?
I doubt it. That would be hilarious if it was, though.
Ping issues, I feel, if he was playing on USC's right now. But either way, we seem to know everyone from DC's side, even though they had that minor shuffle that you talked about. Forev going to join up with his former MVP comrade. And it's been a little while since we've seen our MVP boys return to glory. So hopefully for their sake, they do well in this series. Definitely the heavy favorites here. And up against Thunderbirds, they are going to have to beat Infamous here if they want any hope of top 2.
Monkey King, Crystal Maiden, the aggressive and the little bit of a passive support duo picked up right away from Digital Chaos. And you got to make sure that Boca doesn't get his hands on Monkey King, even if it is Boca's son. Again, we have no idea who these guys are because these names are kind of weird, but we're going to call them what they're tagged up as because I guess that's just the polite thing to do. Either way, Monkey King CM going to go up against the Warlock first pick, pretty reasonable. Then we have a really early Troll Warlord. Definitely an interesting adaptation here. I'm not a huge fan of the Troll Warlord. I feel like it's a fine 4th, 5th pick if you can fit him in, if you have some synergy build up already, but I feel like if I'm going to be picking my carry, I'd rather have a Terrorblade.
Yeah, they did steal away Baboka Jr.'s Monkey King, though, so draft 1, obviously, for DC side. Troll, one of the heroes that can man up against the Monkey King in the early game, so in that respect, I don't mind the pick. I do agree with you in some respect that I usually favor seeing it a little bit later on in the draft, and already with the Boundless Strike, the Frostbite, the Crystal Nova, there is some capability to kite this Troll Warlord around with DC's side. Still, though, a lot behind him in the way of team fight already with the Chaotic Offering, and a little later into the game, the Upheaval to facilitate the Troll's obvious aggression. Other than that, standard first phase, Abaddon, Magnus, Legion, Ricky, maybe Infamous, I don't know, missed out on the last couple of weeks, but it doesn't seem like Magnus nearly held in as high esteem as he was just a short while ago. Either way, not something that they want to see against DC. Was Bulba playing the Magnus recently? But that would be in the hands of Forev now, and definitely something he's proficient with.
I mean, last game, Magnus was picked up the latest phase you could possibly get it. And, well, now we have a couple of those offlane heroes hated out by the DC side. Timbersaw as well as that Centaur. And, well, they have to pick up an offlane of their own. And quite frankly, a lot of offlane hate here. Would not be too surprised to see an Omni Knight show up just because one of the few great offlane heroes still in the pool. You can always go towards like a Sand King if you're really feeling up to it. You can grab yourself a Bat Rider or something along those lines as well. So there will always be offlane heroes to pick up, but man, they've been taking an absolute beating here in this ban phase from both teams. The primo offlaners are pretty much all gone at this stage. But I mean, Crystal Maiden, Monkey King, you don't really need all that much to kind of enable your supports. They're usually the ones to do the enabling. So free picks here for Digital Chaos, really. There's not much that they have to play around either. I mean, like, Troll Warlord is a threat, but it's not a hero that is just, like, impossible to man fight up against. You can manage him. Warlock is also very manageable. So it does seem like DC can get their most comfortable pick here instead of needing to get a certain hero.
Yeah, they can just really go for the Invoker for Abed. But either way, Abed, it just proves to be a handful in lane. And when you supplement that with the aggression potential of a Monkey King, it's always a bit worrisome in the early stages. Interesting pick here from DC. They're going to go for Forev's Nature's Prophet, and he's almost instantly hard countered here by the SB. They do have a couple of ways to stop this charge with a nicely placed Boundless Strike or the Frostbite if they're nearby. But it is going to be a good pick for Infamous. Makes the Invoker a little better for me. The fact that they have the Sprout into the Sunstrike combination with the Monkey roaming around. For now, they're actually going to pick up the Bristleback. So this is either going to be a safe lane NP or a safe lane BB. And it's possible that they put the Bristle in the off lane here because the Nature's Prophet's a bit vulnerable to the Spirit Breaker, and then give the NP a little bit of support. He is a very strong safe laner with all that base damage he has, and the potential to kind of manipulate the creep wave with his trios.
Absolutely love the Bristleback pick, though. With the Crystal Maiden, it solves so much of the Bristleback's mega early game, where you can just spam out your quills to your heart's content, and I mean, you gotta, I guess, still be kind of responsible, but yeah, you'll be doing so much extra damage. This screams aggression from the Digital Chaos side. Monkey King, Crystal Maiden, again, those heroes that can get off to a very aggressive start. Monkey King from minute 0 CM needs a little bit of time, level 3, level 4, but then she can also join the fray, and when you're talking about Bristleback, you just run at your enemies, Nature's Prophet to cut them off. It does seem like it's going to be an absolute brawl fest, and in that sense, positioning is absolutely key, and to that end, Infamous, I really like their last 2 picks. Like, obviously, Spirit Breaker, really good up against Nature's Prophet, that's kind of a given, but he has great synergy with the Troll Warlord in the later stages of the game, and now the Batrider pickup as well is an absolutely monstrous hero up against, again, Nature's Prophet, but also has a lot of game up against the Monkey King. Being able to see him is one thing, but also being able to deforest him and make sure that he is not going to be providing that mobile vision is a big deal in favor of Infamous. If Digital Chaos are looking for that pickoff game, so much harder when you don't have a Monkey King scouting.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of control and a lot of scouting available to the Infamous side. I do worry a bit for their lack of damage. As you mentioned, Greater Bash obviously synergizes well with the Battle Trance. So there will be, if they get a little lucky, some damage output coming from that duo. But still, they're going to need to supplement that with a mid laner who offers them a bit of burst. And I'm assuming at this point the Spirit Breaker will be for position. So more than likely going to be the case here. We'll see what DC around their lineup, but they're going to ban out the Queen of Pain, mentioned burst, kind of at high value here for Infamous, and Queen of Pain, one of the heroes to take away. Ember Spirit, definitely a hero that can not only offer a bit of magic burst with the Remnant Bomb, as well as his entire magic damage toolkit, but innately mobile, just like the Queen of Pain can team up in tandem with his Spirit Breaker and Batrider in the early game. And again, another almost hard counter, 3 in a row essentially to that Nature's Prophet.
Always a risk whenever you pick up this Nature's Prophet. I feel like this happens every single time I'm casting and I see Nature's Prophet. It's like, oh, right, we got Nature's Prophet, and now we're up against Spirit Breaker and a Clockwork and a Storm Spirit. It just gets worse and worse every single time. But Ember Spirit is a hero that has kind of mediocre matchups over in the mid lane. Spirit Breaker charges definitely will try to tip things in the Ember Spirit's favor, but Abed looking for the mid lane hero most likely, unless we see something a little bit of a twist here for Digital Chaos as far as Nature's Prophet or Bristleback going mid, which is also not an impossibility. But you mentioned Invoker a little bit earlier. Lena's still in the pool, though I would be concerned for her survivability somewhat. It's going to be a Death Prophet. I like this pick quite a bit. It's a hard hero to gank as a Spirit Breaker. You can charge in, but you know that you're offering her another Siphon target. So you got to burst her down quick, and Spirit Breaker, Ember Spirit, they do a lot of damage, but they do it very slowly.
Mm-hmm. Wow, going to be very interesting to see who comes out of how these lanes shake down and who comes out with an advantage. It feels like if DC do, they have many ways to push. There is a Batrider for wave clear. Ember Spirit, it seems a little difficult for him to wave clear into potentially a Frostbite and a Death Prophet silence. Boundless Strike can come out as well to lock him down. So there is enough wave clear for Infamous, but it feels like, with that Bristleback in the front line, they don't really want to be pulling him back with the lasso necessarily, as they may lack the burst to bring him down. But either way, very kind of experimental looking draft for DC here. It is game 1, so they certainly have some leeway, but keep in mind, winner goes on to face Thunderbirds, loser goes down to face IsGG in this double elim group stage, GSL type group stage. So neither of those teams very easy opponents, and definitely the win here necessary for both of these teams to make top 2.
Give us a little bit of a read as to how well this new DC squad is going to gel together. You mentioned earlier we got Forev and Dubu back together. The old Korean Dota, love me some of that. But also Infamous, a little bit of a question mark. I mean, we don't know what their actual names are because they're tagged up as Baboka and YYF, so big shoes to fill, I suppose, but not many people are sure as to how powerful this team actually is. And Benyes has been in the scene forever. He is extremely talented at what he does, and you would assume that he'd be able to control his teammates pretty well. But everyone else, seeing as though they don't have any names that I recognize, at least, who knows? Maybe there are people we know, but we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Haas is like, we've seen him forever. He's kind of the grizzled tier 2 veteran who wins a lot of smaller tournaments. And, the other thing to mention about him, though, that is maybe a point of concern is that he's always on a different team. Feels like some guy that, he seems like a decent captain, has a good mind about him in terms of the draft, and doesn't make any glaring misplays, consistently at least. It's just odd to see him always be shuffling between teams, but really the only stable team for the last little while in South America altogether was Pain Gaming, which became SG eSports. So very hard to find stability in that region altogether.
Talking about bouncing around between teams, on the other end we have Bulba. Just not to be outdone for sure, but you know what? We have ourselves a draft. We have ourselves heroes loading out. So let's take a quick look at who's going to be playing what. We will politely refer to these guys as they're tagged up. YYF, definitely the real YYF, definitely not a fraud, is going to be handling the Warlock. Baboka Jr. on the Spirit Breaker, I like it. Benya, as aforementioned, on the Troll Warlord. You got Gucci on the Ember Spirit, and Sword is on the Bat Rider. I definitely recognize the Heart Amy, but I'm not really sure who that is from.
Yeah, on the other side of things, Forev gonna make his return here. Join out Dubu on his Nature's Prophet. That's something he's comfortable with. We got Abed playing up on the Death Prophet over on the east side. Mason gonna pick up the Bristleback alongside his comrades. Dubu is gonna be playing his Crystal Maiden, and finally we're gonna have on the Courier and/or the Monkey King. Kanishka, aka Sam, aka Bulbo, aka Harry Potter. All right, he'll get a right click off and the Frostbite onto Sword, but does have the Orb of Venom, Jingu Mastery queued up, but should be able to make it away.
Well, this Bat Rider forced to use a Tango already. It's not really like a massive win, but he's probably going to have to go all the way back or Shrine right now. And that is going to be Bat Rider, just off the lane. So this Monkey King, this Crystal Maiden, perhaps going to be a little bit idle, but that's exactly what they want. Crystal Maiden especially just doesn't want to be messing with the lane opposition. Just wants to be jungling, and with that small play, we'll be getting just that. This will also be getting Mason a couple of minutes with the creep wave freely to last hit, which means that when the Bat Rider arrives, he's going to be going up against the Bristleback with most likely a magic stick. Possibly even building up towards that magic wand very quickly as well. So Bat Rider, not off to a fantastic start. Does have boots rather early on, but I'm not really sure if he's able to do all that much with those.
Bulba, some shenanigans. Just kind of bodying up the Bat Rider, trying to block his stack. Wasn't successful in doing so. So the Bat Rider at least prepares himself one stack. As you mentioned, goes back to base so as not to waste his Shrine. Meanwhile, though, top lane charge in on Forev. And they do have the Orb of Venom slow here, as well as the Shadow Word. This Nature's Prophet looks like he may not be long for this world. One more right click, and YYF, the legend himself, finding the first blood.
Such a difficult lane to survive against. Such a difficult game to survive against as this Nature's Prophet. The Spirit Breaker just will always have that Nature's Prophet's number, and even though Troll, Warlock aren't really huge damage dealing heroes at this stage in the game, Nature's Prophet isn't really a good hero to tank any of that. He is not durable enough, full stop. So if he's not going to control the wave, actually mid lane, Abed getting a really aggressive playoff onto Gucci will get the kill, and with the salve we'll be just fine. Ember Spirit dropping first. I'll mention that in a little bit, but Forev, if he's not able to control the creep wave with his treants, make sure that he's CSing with them, pulling them back in, and being cute with the aggression, then he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But Abed getting that first kill on a really good matchup is going to be charged now by Baboka Jr. Picks up a double damage rune, pisses off Roshan in the meantime. Luckily for him, he doesn't get hit by him. Onto Abed, he'll stick pretty closely, but Gucci has chains, but he doesn't have any way of closing the distance for chains. And even with that charge in, Abed is expected to pretty much smash this lane even more so than he is right now.
Yeah, he's dominating the CS. I mean, not by an extremely wide margin, but by a wider margin than back with Death Prophet. Not a hero necessarily known for her right click or animation, and he's got 4 denies against the Ember Spirit. So really well played for him thus far. Elsewhere, things going well for DC. I mean, they lost forever, but that's kind of expected. And now he's going to be encroached upon again. Charge going out onto the Nature's Prophet. Does not have a point in the sprint. Can go for the instant TP out, but with the double damage rune just expiring on Baboka Jr., it looks like he will be able to retreat back to safety. And Dubu farming elsewhere. Kekona farming in the bot lane very well. Mid lane now in trouble.
Stick thinking about it, Bulba. What the hell is this? He's a double damage rune? Okay. Just not going to deploy it just yet, but still Gucci is going to be forced to burn through a lot of regen. This courier better give him something. Boots and Clarity is not the regen he would really want. He does still have one shrine active, so he will be able to work with that. But now Dubu going to make his arrival with Forev as well. Looking to jack the courier, and that will be taken down. Tries to sprint away. Not going to happen. Gucci locked down thanks to the snowman. But seems like Abed was just a little bit too far away to fully capitalize onto that kill, especially with the rotation from YYF. But either way, you may not kill the Ember Spirit, but you do get the courier. And it's not like Forev was able to do all that much in that meantime anyway.
Yeah, it's well worth his rotation. All he would have been doing otherwise jungling. But Gucci in trouble again mid lane here. Crypt Swarm goes out. He gets the Flame Guard off just in the nick of time. But now he won't be able to push the wave or CS with that for the next 30 seconds. So it's still a win for Abed overall in the lane. Under the cover of Invis, YYF not posing much of a threat here to Abed. And Forev finding some space in lane. He gets his level 3.5 already. Mason beating into the tower bot lane. And speaking of bot lane, Sword in trouble. One more right click. Oh, the Frostbite from Dubu will end up getting the kill. YYF here alongside Baboka Jr. But they don't really pose much of a threat. And Mason gonna body him away. So already 40% of that tower tier 1 bottom lane taken down. And the early game going well for DC.
A little bit surprised we don't see Magic Stick being picked up by the Bristleback. You don't really need a lot of mana since you already have the CM, but oh, okay, never mind, he picks it up. So he is going to go up against the Bat Rider and pretty much the matchup you would expect. Magic Sticks, Magic Wands galore, and everyone spamming their spells. It will be difficult to kill off these heroes unless you make a really big effort, but either way, 2-1 for DC, and we now have a level 3 Crystal Maiden, Monkey King, only level 2, but still with that Orb of Venom and still with Dubu to set everything up. Can definitely look to get some blood on their hands, and if possible, really, they want to go for this Ember Spirit, who's been having just an absolute hellish time right now. Both of his shrines have already been used, so I'm not really sure what his plan is for sustain. And your plan can't be, oh, we're just going to sack the mid lane, and okay, well, they're actually going to kill off Mason in the meantime, but if they try to sack the mid lane, Abed's a freaking Death Prophet. He will kill your tower. That's a big kill, though, to be had on bottom. Bristleback is not easy, and they're able to do it, albeit barely. Bat Rider cutting it pretty close.
Yeah, they were holding a skill point on Abed, and now that they see the rotation came down to bottom lane in order to net that kill on Mason, they end up popping the Exorcism and going in towards this mid lane tier 1. Probably won't be able to kill it off entirely, but they'll put a very significant chunk of damage into it. Rotations coming through from the Warlock, the charge coming through from the north, and Gucci back down to the lane. This should back Abed off for now. He'll keep the tower just outside of deny range. YYF actually taking a lot of damage. Crypt Swarm just short of killing him off. Frostbite going to stop the charge. Right clicks coming through from Bulba. He gets the Boundless Strike off as well. Slow from the Spirit Siphon. Primal Spring. One more right click. They'll bring him down. So Spirit Breaker punished. Tower out of deny range. And all is well for DC.
That was actually a pretty sick jump from the Monkey King on the Sprout of the Nature's Prophet, and the trees disappeared, and I thought he was going to stun himself. But I guess that's not how that works, or maybe he was already in the air, and well, something happened there. But either way, was able to jump off the Sprout, and well, it's narrow combos, but combos nonetheless. Forev is level 5, and he is going to go for the Midas, even though he hasn't really been able to truly lane. With the jungling of the Nature's Prophet, he is still remaining fairly competitive in this game, is topping Gucci and the enemy Bat Rider in the farm department. So, yeah, I mean, you can't really ask for more coming out of your Nature's Prophet.
Yeah, level 5 as well on his laning equivalent in the Bat Rider. That kill on the Bristleback going to help a little bit in that cause, but there were 3, if not 4 heroes present when they did kill off Mason, so I'm not sure you got all that much in the way of experience. Still, offlaners about at parity in the way of what they've gotten out of this early game. Now, though, Mason seems like he's got a sixth sense about him, And you will see a hero missing from mid back underneath his tower. And it'll be just fine for now. Gucci forced to TP back to mid lane. Up to the trees is Bulba on his MK. Gripstorm going to fly out. Gucci going to try and back off Abed's Prophet and look to deny this tower. He gets Crystal Nova'd up. Gripstorm is there as well. Primal Spring not being channeled. And Remnant up to the high ground will keep Gucci safe for now. YYF! What a player.
And in the meantime, they were
top lane.
battle trancing and charging for Forev. And, well, Mason's going to spring into action, get right back into the lane, but it is still a tower picked up by the DC side, and losing an Nature's Prophet, again, to this combo is something that's pretty much to be expected. He's only died twice, so for Forev, it's still perfectly fine. This Bristleback is going to be joining the fight very early on, though. Is not going to go for any fat items, just the hood, now a Vanguard, and he's going to look to join very quickly. The fight will break out up towards top lane. Benyez is going to get drained out by Abed, going to use his Exorcism here as well. Benyez will get swarmed down. Boca will slip out of there. Exorcism not quite fully onto the tower, but you know what? It's with that Arcane Rune, so it's not a big deal for Abed, and it'll still do a lot of damage.
Yeah, so they get the free lower cooldown on the Exorcism. They see that top lane immediately smoke up with the Crystal Maiden. They have 4F to TP in with the teleport. And Bulba joining the fray as well. Had they hit that Primal Spring earlier, maybe they kill off the Spirit Breaker, but they get the target they're going for. And that is going to be the Troll Warlord. Bulba was charged up momentarily, but makes the jump over towards his Tier 1 tower. And Infamous are going to think better of it. In the meantime, Tier 1 eliminated top lane. Unfortunately, no one able to net the last hit, but either way, going to be a nice tower for them to grab here sub 10 minutes.
There's a lot of acceleration waiting in the DC jungle. A giant stack of Ancients in the southern jungle. A little bit of a hard camp stack there as well. Most likely it'll be the Mason Bristleback cash into this. We saw this. We expect to see this a lot from Envy. He played a lot of Bristleback, and he was able to do something very similar. Just go straight to the jungle. Dubu, what is a Crystal Maiden doing here? Seems like a little bit of a mismatch for her, and she's going to get slaughtered. Poor CM. Breaks my heart every time.
Man. It's the Pilot ICM. Don't you know about this? Either way.
Tactical.
Yes, the tactical feed. The ward on the cliff here, they pinged out Abed TPing to the shrine, so they were well aware that at least there was no Death Prophet behind her, so pretty free and clear kill for Infamous. Still, I don't think anything DC is going to lose too much sleep over. Farming pretty well across the board, and even Forev keeping up with the Ember Spirit. Soon to pick up his Midas. He's got his phase boot, so he's got his essentials. Abed's Death Prophet going to go for a Midas as well. What do you know? Sweet item.
Midas is on everyone except for the enemy Troll Warlord. Actually has gone for Vlad's first. Definitely interesting build-up. He's going to, kind of stick to the more cookie-cutter-ish build after that Vlad's, but I think every single time I've seen Troll Warlord recently find any sort of success, it's been when he's been absolutely power farmed through Midas's or through Magnus, Empower, and he's not going to have a ton in this game. He's not really even going to have a ton of space created by his allies either. Like, Batrider's getting to a point where he will maybe be able to do that, but Boca Jr. definitely not. He's dead on top lane. 3 heroes able to bring him down, and Ember Spirit has had such a rough start. He's going for Travels. That is not going to be a relevant enough space creation item for this Troll Warlord to really get going. So it does seem like DC are setting up, even with these Midases, for a point in the game where they will be able to just force these fights from Infamous, and Infamous just won't have the farm necessary to battle back.
YYF, mid lane, has the lasso available as well, and the blink on sword. And Mason with a very timely pause for his squad. Radiant.
They see YYF and Baboka, but they don't see the bat.
So charge coming in. They're well aware of this for Abed. He's got really no way to get out, however. Crystal Nova on cooldown as well. So just a Frostbite available. Maybe they get it off on the Spirit Breaker. Remnant forward, though. They find the chains onto 2. Lasso is there. Chaotic Offering as well. And obliterated is the CM. 3-man Boundless Strike. But Bulba, he's in no man's land. And he'll just chain feed here. Mason going to get 1 return kill on YYF. And it's just a little bit too tanky for Infamous to continue forward. They'll be content with their spoils thus far, namely killing off Abed in that mid lane. Going to drag back quite a bit of the lead that DC had established, and it's about 1,000 net worth swing in the favor of Infamous.
Yeah, Death Prophet is very much so a glass cannon hero for the first 20-25 minutes of the game. Going for a Hand of Midas build-up, definitely not going to help her to kind of smooth that over. We'll eventually be getting armor, we'll be getting just raw health, so that it's more difficult to make that play, but for right now, Infamous, as long as they're able to maintain the numbers advantage and use that big asset they have in that Warlock Rock, especially towards the Death Prophet, then they should be finding some pretty nice success. And the more you do plays like that, the more you enable your kind of underfarmed Ember Spirit to kind of get back into the game. But for right now, Bristleback, tanky as all hell, is going to go straight towards the Roche. Level 1 Goo with a little bit of minus armor, so that Abed's Ghosts can do a little bit extra damage. And Infamous, yeah, they have no Warlock Rock, therefore they have no way of fighting this.
Yeah, they knew exactly what DC were doing. They scanned around the pit. They even dropped a ward here, which was promptly dewarded thereafter by DC's side, by Dubu. But either way, yeah, with the Medallion and the Vanguard, as you mentioned, they had a timely double damage rune on Mason, and the key point, the Rock, off the board. DC take advantage. Meanwhile, though, Benjas bot lane takes out the tier 1. Unfortunately, does not net the last hit, but either way, he's going to trade that for his recently fallen tower top lane and for the Roche. So though DC kind of have what they need to fight. They've got the Hood of Defiance and the extra life on Mason. Abed, he's still no exorcism for a good little while as they use it to bring down the Roche, but will be up well within the duration of the Aegis, and he should have a Veil to couple with that as his Midas ticks away.
We have a charge out from this bottom lane. It's going towards Dubu, but Dubu has so much protection. But Abed, Bulba, they are definitely heroes that Infamous can deal with, especially since Sword does have a Blink Dagger at this stage. I assume that they know about it, DC, although I don't think it's been clearly used by the Bat Rider yet. I may be wrong about that, but it looks like that charge not going to do a hell of a lot right now. As long as the exorcism is down, there's really no point in DC making any super aggressive plays. They do have this farming advantage given to them by these hands of Midas and this Bristleback. Though he is very tanky right now, and you may want to just kind of leverage him into a bunch of team fights, it's only going to be if you find free ones, such as over mid lane perhaps, where they're going to make an attempt on this Ember Spirit. Not quite a full commitment though.
Yeah, looks like he'll be able to make it out. Didn't even have a defensive remnant out, but Silence only level 1, so he'll be just fine for the time being. Either way, DC spending a little bit of time farming until they get their Abed cooldowns back to maybe take a look at some of these structures. For now, though, they'll put Mason on the front lines. He's very difficult to initiate on, especially with an extra life, and look to take this low-hanging fruit out of the offlane tier 1.
We're going to have a lot of armor items here. Obviously the Bristleback already has his completed Solar Crest and that Shine going to be on the field, and we'll have another one being built up by the Nature's Prophet. He only has that little baby one in that medallion, but still, it'll be really difficult for the Troll Warlord to find his targets, and you're looking at offensive power being amplified from Mason and Abed as well. Ghosts are physical, of course, and Bristleback is purely physical as well, so these armor swings will do some pretty nice work here for the DC side. This tower push on bottom is not free. Benyes definitely using the troll for pushing a lot more than we ordinarily see. Usually takes a little bit longer for trolls to get a lot of pushing power because they're usually off farming, but is looking to use that Fervor and that Berserker's Rage as much as he possibly can. It is actually doing a really good job at just chipping down bottom, putting damage into this tier 2 in the mid lane and bottom lane. It's definitely not a relevant amount of damage. They're going to charge in after Abed. He's very low on mana. Charge going to land. The Chaotic Offering is going to chain stun further. Death Prophet is able to get, I don't think any siphons off. He will stick up, try to start for a little while longer. It's not going to happen. Mason also dropping very low. Does have the Aegis, so he's going to go a little bit further. As Forev does teleport in, is going to leash down YYF with the Sprout. They'll take down Boca Jr. first, and Mason's still alive. They don't have any more chase power, though, and it will be ultimately just a 1-for-1 exchange. Aegis still held by the Bristleback, though Bat Rider's going to come in. Not going to make any sort of commitment here. Not a great trade for DC, but at least they don't have to worry about the Chaotic Offering anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Dire side, I think, are very happy with that they expend an Exorcism top lane for a tier 2 that isn't necessarily all that influential in the way of map control. And they get the mid lane tier 1, which, even though it's a tier 1 compared to a tier 2, feels a lot more valuable. It's not something that's going to be necessarily free for Infamous going forward with all the wave clear available to DC. So I think they were happy with that, and knowing the Exorcism was off the board, they want to go in and fight right away. Unfortunately for them, they're unable to get much other than an Abed kill. But again, that's the second time, yeah. 3, 2, and 1 on Abed that they kill off this Death Prophet. So even with the Midas, keeping her down, keeping her, killable, not extremely tanky is going to be a very desirable result for Infamous.
Yeah, Veil of Discord, a great offensive item. Gives you a little bit of defensive components, but if you are focusing onto a Death Prophet with very low mana, not really much he can do. So yeah, Abed just has to make sure that he's managing his mana pool a little bit better there. They're going to jump in for a lasso onto Bulba. Force Staff is up as well. Looking for the Boundless Strike, is going to feign it a couple times. It will just slow roast the entire time, but I guess base created. Sprout not going to do anything versus that Firefly, but a Crypt Swarm from distance will make it an even trade, and a pretty good trade for DC at that. And as soon as they make that trade, we could see immediately Infamous springing into action. Ben is on bottom. He's going to shove this one over towards mid lane, same exact thing. And DC, though they can push really, really quickly, I don't think they can race this many heroes who are already in position to push towers.
Yeah, bot lane for Ev TPing in. Nicely timed ranged whirling axes from Benjaz, and he's got support inbound as well. Now they see 2 heroes showing near the tier 1 top lane, and they'll charge in onto Forev. They get the Nether Strike off, a couple of right clicks coming through from Benjaz, and it looks like Forev will be sacked, as will the tier 2. Top lane, they don't expend an exorcism this time, so kind of learning their lesson from bottom, but still, it's an even tower trade, and the Aegis expires. Infamous are not by any means sad with this trade. They're going to TP in Sword towards top as he respawns. He's got Blink Force available to him. But there is Radiant Vision up on the cliff, so they are going to see him. Up to the tree goes Bulba.
Oh, Mason
trying to TP out. Jump forward. Frostbite is there. Lasso is there, though, as well. Onto Abed. They get strike off with the Chaotic Offering. Hits 3 with the Remnant Bomb as well. Freezing Field is going to come out. Does a decent amount of work for the Radiant squad. It's actually almost going to kill off the entire Infamous team. Mason now in a little bit of trouble, although that Bristleback passive pop does give him another couple of kills, trying to kind of stay on the periphery of this. And now Forev, after dying bottom lane, is going to come back into the fray, gets the Sprout off, they kill off Benjaz, and the charge out will not keep Infamous alive. Mason just undealt with in that fight, and he ends up doing a lot of work. And they end up taking, if you include the original Forev death, a 5 for 4, but overall 5 for 3 in that small skirmish. And they will be able to get some chip damage done on the tower here.
Can't really blame Infamous for not dealing with Mason. He's just way too tanky to effectively burst down. They don't have someone like a Legion commander in order to force him to show his face to Infamous, so he's always going to have that freedom of mobility. Oh, Blink in from this Ember Spirit very aggressively, gets sprouted, pretty well done, but Infamous are coming in force. Forev going to try to straight leave. He'll be successful, and Mason is going to be the chase of a lifetime. Well, maybe not. Lasso's up in 1 second. That will let them get into position to hit his face. Although Doob is going to throw in a snowball from the side. That'll give him a couple more seconds. And, well, Bulba's going to throw out his ultimate. Will do a whole lot of nothing. But they will still turn around on the Bat Rider and do him in. Bristleback just does so much damage right now. And it does seem like with that kill, DC, once again, assembling the troops on the top lane. I think the big difference between that last fight that we saw and the previous fights was that Abed was not 100 to 0. He was able to get some siphons off. And though he was taken down eventually, he put out so much damage before he dropped.
Yeah, and it might even be a silver lining that he died because he didn't expend his exorcism. They still have it here with an exposed lane of racks. And we'll see if they look to press forward. I mean, Bulba did miss the Wukong's command, but he hit a max range Boundless Strike there, which nests them the kill on the Bat Rider. It's going to give them 10 seconds here where there's no Bat. He'll get the silence off. Abed will onto the YYF Warlock. And they will get a little bit of chip damage into this melee racks. Maybe choosing the wrong racks here. We'll see now that the glyph expires if they can get enough work done. Jump forward. Lasso is going to find the Death Prophet. They'll battle trance up. Try to burst her down. She is getting very low quickly and will be brought down. And they will not get the melee racks. So easily could have brought that range racks down, but get a little bit greedy here and a quick snap reaction from Sword on his respawn, netting the Death Prophet there.
Death Prophet is certainly building up a lot tankier right now. With that hood, we saw how long it took them to actually bring her down, but that initiation from the Bat Rider, pretty much textbook. It's going to be perfect for them. Baboka Jr. going to land the charge. The two-man strike is going to slow them down, and then Mason is going to let loose, although the Chaotic Offering does drop in the middle, killing off the 2 supports. Forev, once again, going to try to straight TP out of here. He will fail. Mason will succeed. Again, this Bristleback rather unkillable. But Infamous are able to strike back really hard, killing 4 heroes while losing none of their own. It's the fight that you would expect when Chaotic Offering is used, and for DC, this Death Prophet, I'm not really sure if I like this Boots of Travel selection. It does seem like she's being targeted every single time, and she doesn't have a Dazzle or a Vengeful Spirit behind her to save her. She just has to survive in order to get that Siphon off.
Did you see that Spirit Breaker play? He was pretty much left for dead through Mason, and he nether struck a creep that was walking to the east. So he got him really far out of the fight when he actually hit it on the creep. So it was basically used as a blink out. It was really nice, but either way, that's all they end up getting, even if they do get that Spirit Breaker kill. So still would have been beneficial for Infamous on the extraction attempt from DC. And they go for the melee racks, already back up to half HP, and will continue to regen. Infamous also pushes out the lane in the meantime, so that's going to deter DC from trying to go right back towards top with their next exorcism cooldown. Still, though, everyone pretty farm for DC's side, but a few glimmers of hope now for Infamous, and they will look into the BKB for their Troll Warlord relatively soon. They're going to smoke up the Ember Spirit alongside the Bat, and with the Veil, they do have enough damage to kill most heroes. You mentioned the tankiness of the Death Prophet. She does have that 12% magic resistance talent plus the Hood now, so probably not the one they want. Sword will find her anyways. Charge comes in. Gonna be veiled up. You get the Remnant Bomb off. The chains are there too, and it looks like they may. No, she silences. Yes, they just have enough. Kill off the DP. No one responding for Infamous's side. So even with the Hood and the 12% magic resist talent, Abed gonna be taking it down again in this one. And that's the 5th death for the DC mid laner.
Just not enough health in this Death Prophet. Of course, you can't expect her to survive a gank of that caliber. Pretty much left for dead from the rest of her teammates, but not even time to try to get a Siphon off, which, who knows, may be able to turn the tide, simply because Ember Spirit tends to be, especially with this Veil build, very front-loaded as far as his damage output. You get a big burst of damage, and then not much afterwards. So if you survive that, usually you're just going to walk out of the fight. But for right now, she's going to be respawning soon with Exorcism available. But Infamous are doing a really good job at really abusing this vision that they have with the Bat Rider, with the Spirit Breaker to capitalize even further. Still, Mason is wandering around unanswered, and he's going to have another fat item soon in that Assault Cuirass build-up. But everyone else on DC seem extremely, extremely vulnerable, especially since they're going to try to go for Roshan. Up against the Bat Rider with still Lasso, as well as a Chaotic Offering. They're going to smoke in. It's only Mason presenting himself right now. And if they're going to focus him, he's kind of okay with it. He's going to turn his back as best he can. Boundless Strike is perfect. Here comes the ultimates from the supports. Both of them are going to drop pretty well. But no, they're actually going to both be canceled with a Chaotic Offering dropping onto Dubu. Abed, though, he's in the middle of the fight with his ultimate active. It's going to kill off the Golem in a hurry. But Infamous, they took the CM kill. And they're going to back off away from that circle of monkeys. As Abed's going to go right back in. Ooh, brave blink in there from the Bat Rider. Lots of damage being dealt to this Bristleback right now with the charge in. They'll bowl over Mason and actually jack the Aegis and kill off 4Ev. Infamous just get away with murder. That's a 4-0 after that initial team fight. Plus they're able to, well, maybe get a 5th as Boba is spotted. Here's the charge, and he's swarmed with heroes. Full 5-man wipe. And they get the Roche and the Aegis, I think? Yeah, they kill off everything. They kill actually everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you call pot committed, I suppose, from DC. They just would not give up on that Roche, and they really, all it was, they didn't respect the Veil on the back end of the fight. It was the second cast of the Veil from the Ember Spirit. Firefly was on the ground. Flame Break was ticking away, and he just, I mean, Mason just didn't expect to die that quickly. Abed as well, with the charge coming through on the back end, ends up getting finished off, and the Aegis dies just after. Or the Aegis drops just after they die. So really unfortunate set of circumstances for DC's side. And Benjaz, with the reveal of his BKB, was able to survive through all that initial brunt. So he didn't take any damage from the freezing field, which is, the main reason I would say he survives in the pit there.
Yeah, that was just a good initial disengage from the Infamous side. Chaotic Offering helping a lot in that regard as well, but I mean, it's so clear what you have to do in that situation. As Monkey King, you drop your ultimate because there's a team fight, but then the enemies just walk away from it. You're looking at Death Prophet, you're looking at a Bristleback, and they're really good at slowing down enemies, but as far as blocking them down and keeping them in those circles of doom, there's no real way for them to do that pretty much ever, unless Mason is eventually going to pick up like a Basher or something like that, a super late game Sheepstick for a Death Prophet along those lines, maybe. But Infamous just able to walk in and walk out, thanks to the lack of disables there from DC. The only heroes with disables where, I mean, Crystal Maiden was channeling, obviously, and the Boundless Strike was already used, so
Yeah.
that initial disengage really saved their bacon there, and now they're in a dominant position just to look for these pickoffs. They do have to be careful
BKB
because
on the
DC
bat.
have a lot of power, but they're looking at Mason for right now. Dubu right behind him as backup. Sword is spotted. We'll have a blink out, and he should be just fine. Oh, but top lane,
Yeah, they do have a
Bulba is
BKB
less
on
fine.
the bat
Forev
as well.
is going to arrive to help him out, and Abed will as well.
They have an Orchid on 4F. Another strike, though, from range is going to connect on him. Does he drop it off? He gets it off onto the Ember Spirit. They'll just walk away from this one. Charge will cancel the TP, and a couple more right clicks with the Battle Trance will finish Bulba off. DC are getting rolled in the past 5 minutes here. Mason going to try and chase down Benja's bottom lane, but he's all by his lonesome, so can't really pose much of a threat. And DC have had their lead not only eaten, but eaten away entirely, and now Infamous have generated 10k in the way of a net worth lead. That Roche fight really proving to kind of sway the game in Infamous's favor. The one last thing I forgot to mention about that fight is the upheaval channeled for like 3 seconds, and Abed was forced to use his silence, his big AoE silence, just on one hero, the Warlock, who had already already dropped his chaotic offering. So Infamous spiraling into a lead here.
Spread of farm is definitely going to be something that's concerning for DC. Hannah Midas forever on this Nature's Prophet and Death Prophet both, so yeah, you'd expect them to be fairly farmed. They're not quite as farmed as they really need to be, and you're looking at Infamous's heroes. I mean, the Troll is on top, the Ember's not too far behind, and that's to be expected. You have a Hannah Midas on the Warlock as well as on the Spirit Breaker. These supports are just going to be rolling in the dough. Compare that to Bulba and Dubu on this Monkey King and CM. They just don't have the ability to keep up with farm, and well, Dubu is going to get picked off, so that's not going to help his farm game either necessarily. But Infamous's spread of farm is going to be so much more balanced, and for DC that means that they absolutely cannot afford to get picked off, and they're up against a Batrider. It's just not possible for them to not get picked off. So Infamous just working with such a farm advantage in raw gold, but also in how that gold is actually dispersed in their heroes.
Yeah, it just feels like the early Nature's Prophet pick. They haven't been able to utilize it well. Really no one aside from Bulba who can initiate picks on the other side of the map, and it's far beyond the point in the game where a Monkey King and Nature's Prophet duo can kill off enemies. So they're forced to 5-man here, and it feels like the Spirit Breaker pick, specifically, has just been able to create so much chaos in these fights that they can't get, the proper positioning that they need to get the value out of the Exorcism or the Freezing Field or the Wukong's command. I mean, we haven't seen a single really Wukong's command do anything noteworthy thus far in this game. So really good team fight execution from Infamous, but does feel like to some extent some draft limitation at this point for DC.
Usually we see the Monkey King on kind of the side of the fight, on a tree perched, and then he'll drop the Wukong's command from over a cliff or something along those lines. And again, we established Batrider is just not going to let that happen. As long as the Batrider's in the game, Bulba can't afford to play those cheap shenanigans, because if he's spotted, he's just going to get killed. And that means that the Wukong's command are always when he's in the middle of the fight, and he's clearly not tanky enough to be able to get away with that. Maybe Shadowblade as his next item will help him make sure that the circle stays for a little while longer, but it just does seem like Infamous have this Monkey King and this Nature's Prophet pretty well locked down just by hero disadvantage or hero advantage alone. And they don't really have to work too hard to get that much else aside from that. And Infamous are starting to rally the troops here, looking for this tier 2 tower. Chaotic Offering is up, and DC, they need to make a pretty big play. If Death Prophet had a little bit more gold, a BKB would be such a big difference for her, but not quite up yet.
They've got a Solar Crest as well on YYF for Benjaz. They can throw that on him or even on the Ember Spirit. And they've got a Shadow Blade for Baboka Jr. So the initiation has definitely been in their favor thus far, and perhaps even more so now with that tool to get him into the fray. They will take the tier 2 essentially for free. And just kind of an acknowledgement of the state of the game from Infamous here, how far forward they play with their Batrider. He really, even holding a gem, is playing with reckless abandon here, has a BKB available, so doesn't feel threatened by this DC lineup all that much. There's no one who can really jump on him and lock him in place with that BKB at his side.
Man, this Ember Spirit He's getting pretty ridiculous amounts of farm right now. He has the more or less pretty classic Ember Spirit build, but is going to deviate a little bit. Mjolnir definitely not a bad item to have, but attack speed on Ember, I do think that it's probably better if he was to go for that Shiva's or an Octarine, just a soul booster item, try to get more bulk on him. But he's just looking for some extra DPS, and I guess it does make a little bit of extra sense when you have a Troll Warlord on your team as well. Charge in, going straight towards Bulba. He's going to get locked down. Bounce Strike onto 2 is great, but that's not going to save him, nor is it going to save Dubu, as they're both going to fall. These supports, pretty much just pure food for the Infamous side at this stage, and with those 2 kills, maybe going to look at a little bit of poke up the high ground. The Batrider still has his lasso, so they could still stick around.
Does feel like, though, Infamous are so confident with their ability to control the map with the Batrider, the Gem, and the Spirit Breaker right now that they'll just play it safe and wait for this next Roche. And it is going to be up relatively shortly here, 5 seconds until the potential spawn of Roche. So they'll take the last outer tier tower and this tier 2 mid, and maybe take a look at the pit, or as you mentioned, perhaps even have a poke at high ground.
Still a minute and a half, some odd, before Roshan is going to be up. Mason split pushing, just trying to get a little bit of room for his allies to get something done, but split push up against Travels on Ember Spirit, not really going to be too much effect in the grand scheme of things. Now DC, they're kind of locked in their base. Up against the Batrider, it doesn't seem like the status quo is really easy to change. Same thing because of this Spirit Breaker, who, wow, you mentioned some invis. He's got the big daddy invis. Silver Edge is up above that Shadow Blade, and you know what? I heard that's a pretty good item to have up against the Bristleback. Getting rid of that passive is absolutely backbreaking. Is really good up against the Bristleback.
Literally backbreaking. Nicely done.
No, we're not doing that here. That's too easy.
Courier in the pit. I mean, this is how much you control the map right now. You can just sit your Courier in the pit and wait for Roche. Already Spirit Breaker hitting his 120 GPM mark, so he's got not only a real Midas, but a pseudo Midas on top of that, and maybe even slightly more effective than old Midas, I guess. The new Midas with the 220 gold per tick might be better than 100 GPM, but either way, they're going to just wait out Roche, and that'll be up in 30 seconds. And Infamous feel very difficult to stop for DC's side. Of course, Wukong's Command, Exorcism, these are all good tools for a high ground defense, but with an extra life, a BKB, Talisman of Invasion on Venjaz, it's going to feel very difficult to kill this Troll Warlord. And
oh no, not this again. Not Bulba, not Dubu, poor CM. Oh, the Boundless Strike is once again perfect from Bulba, and he's going to get a little bit of extra time here as the circle is going to go down. Wukong's Command is going to stick for a long time, but his allies just aren't able to stay in the fight long enough. They do take down the Warlock, and they will still keep Mason kicking. But with the Drains, he's going to get a secondary kill with the long-range Quip Swarm. Forev forced to buy out, but yes, as he said, bottom, Benyez is going to ignore all that jazz and is just going to go for what matters. That's not a good idea, bro. Don't do that. Raxes for 3. Well worth it for Infamous.
So, yeah, the first fight where Abed actually has a BKB and doesn't get melted goes well for DC, but the other thing to mention is that Troll's not even present. So even with a BKB, she probably drops there as she has been. Now, Baboka Jr. taking a look in the pit, and DC will desperately try to take one more advantage out of that win top lane. Dubu. Being down from Bulba and Fora, they get an Orchid off, but Force Staff keeps the Boca Jr. safe. Into the pit will go Mason. Forev was out of the pit, so the Roche attempt slowed even further. And looks like Infamous for now are really not going to contest this, which is interesting. Maybe they just buy back a Batrider and that staves off DC, but so DC will find something a little more than just the 3 kills in the top lane, and they will end up getting themselves Aegis. But they do lose that bottom lane of Rax.
It's cheese as well for the DC side. Third Roche.
Yeah, so, Budubu does have a gem as well because of the Batrider.
It's gonna be a lot of assets here for the DC side, but the question is, are those assets going to be worth more or less than Infamous having their Troll Warlord in the fight? Who just now picks up a Butterfly, still has a BKB, 9 seconds in duration, almost at that level 25 mark as well, so Yeah, DC may be really powerful at this stage, but it does again seem like they're putting all their eggs in this bristleback in this bristleback basket. And if Benya is able to get into the bristleback's face in melee form, and bristleback as tanky as he is, won't really last that long.
Yeah, even turned around. I mean, a lot of his net worth is in that Solar Crest that he picked up early on, which obviously was very effective, but now against the MKB, much less so. And Jazz with the Flutter and Phase moving at 550 MS. Now he's going to turn and look at Mason. He will pop the Battle Trance. Mason gets mini bashed up here, trying to run back into the arms of his teammates, but they've already taken out Abed with the Spear Breaker and the Bat Rider. Now the last was going to find Bulba. They're going to bring him down. Freezing Field for Dubu channeled for about half a second as he's going to turn tail and run. And now Ben has, with the BKB, will be able to slow up the Bristleback. He'll charge him up as well. And Aegis or not, it looks like he'll end up dropping here. As Baboka does have the Silver Edge, will break him after the BKB pop. And they'll bring him down. Mega kill streak for Benchaz. They still have the Chaotic Offering and GG, the South American squad, taking out the new DC roster in game 1. Don't know if we'll see an as experimental draft in this second game from Bulba for DC.
That was again a 4v5 fight, and DC just losing the Death Prophet, and that's again where where that spread of farm comes into play. No chance that DC pulls something off with Dubu and Forev. Like that's just not gonna happen because those heroes don't have enough farm. But Baboka Jr. able to get that hand of Midas, and I mean just look at how stacked this Spirit Breaker is. Level 22, has a lot of attack speed, has a lot of damage, and Abed, even as tanky as he is, with that plate mail with the armor from the Veil, just not enough with those two heroes on him. Doesn't have a Yule Scepter or Force Staff or anything to get out of that. That's going to be what wins them the game ultimately. The Aegis was used, the cheese was on Abed, so he didn't even have a chance to use that one. It did seem like for Digital Chaos, they had a period in the game where they were ahead. They really had to push it as much as they can, but Infamous, they just didn't let him. And that, guys, is going to mark the end of Game 1. DC, after their little bit of a roster change here, not exactly